Welcome to Voices,
a podcast from the Institute for Human Rights and Business.
Here, we're seeking to elevate the range of perspectives
on the role of business in the world
and in people's everyday lives.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Voices podcast from the Institute for Human Rights and Business. My guest today is Sophia Kagan, who is the Chief Technical Advisor on the ILO's Fair Migration in the Middle East project. Sophia has a decade of experience working on migration issues with the UN, and in her current role, she focuses on development of policies to support migrant workers in the Arab states. Sophia, welcome.
Thank you so much, Neil. It's such a pleasure to have this opportunity to speak to you on the Voices podcast.
So we're here to discuss a very interesting research paper produced in a joint initiative by the ILO and the IOM, promoting fair and ethical recruitment in a digital world. Perhaps we should start by you telling us a little bit more about the project. Why did you see the project as important, and how did you go about your research?
Well, Neil, the project began, I guess, in 2018 as a collaboration between the ILO's Regional Office for Arab States and the IOM. And we saw this increasing reference to technology in regional dialogues, including in the Arab states. And much of it was being talked about in the context of apps by civil society organizations and companies, including in sort of providing oversight in supply chains. But we felt that little was in the public domain about government use of technology in recruitment. And so we decided to map out these 4 examples of existing state-facilitated digital technology platforms that assist in the recruitment or the placement or job matching of migrant workers. And these are not new platforms. The Republic of Korea's employment permit system, yours, which is the European Employment Services System, have been in operation for more than 15 years. India's e-migrate system was established in 2014. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Musanid system, which focuses on recruitment of migrant domestic workers, was established around that time. And yet, there was relatively little analysis in the global literature on their operation. So we decided to bring the governments on board to basically sort of review information about the operations of these systems. And let me be clear that this wasn't intended as an independent assessment, but really a sort of a preliminary look at these systems and to provide an opportunity for the governments to reflect on what aspects could be improved, and also provide a reference point to those governments that were looking to develop or to redevelop their own platforms.
So the important thing to note here that these are all government-led and initiated and managed sort of platforms. But what is it that the platforms are trying to do? What do they offer?
Sure. Well, I won't go through all 4. So let me just give you 2 examples, the EPS in Korea and e-migrate in India. So EPS is a temporary labor migration program that brings migrant workers from around 16 largely Asian countries of origin to fill labor market gaps in Korea. It operates an online digital technology platform and also a mobile phone application, and it has multiple services, including, for example, an intranet system where applicants can submit their applications and where there's job matching between workers and employers. In principle, all stages of the recruitment process are available to all the parties on the website. So migrant workers can see their employment status, their training records, they can file grievances in their own language. I think this is an important aspect of the EPS, the sort of multilingual function that's designed to meet the needs of migrant workers. But it's not just about the technology interface. I think this is something I'd like to stress. There's also a quote-unquote offline component. Workers are greeted at the airport by a Korean government official. They receive 3 days post-arrival orientation training. There are face-to-face job and counseling centers that are available. So there's this sort of mix of online and offline functions, including grievance hotlines. Then turning to eMigrate, so the EPS that I mentioned earlier, it's an example of a platform by a country of destination. eMigrate is obviously a country of origin initiative, and it provides services to Indian migrants which need an immigration check. So essentially, the program took nearly a decade to roll out, and it aims to convert the immigration clearance from a manual process to an electronic one that links multiple ministries, consulates, employers, recruitment agencies, workers, all on one system. So, I mean, I guess some of the features are, like the EPS, eMigrate has a grievance mechanism that's available. It has an e-locker function where the migrant worker's passport is digitally secured and accessible. So, if the physical copy is lost, then the digital record is available. But I guess, there are many sort of differences between the two systems, including, I think, the role of private recruitment agencies across both platforms.
So it seems to me, and when I was reading the report, that two things become very clear: the need for increased transparency of recruitment processes, and the platform seems to provide some of that, and also, but it doesn't take away the need for effective government oversight of recruitment agencies and the recruitment process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a fair and ethical recruitment can't be achieved and scaled through technology alone. We know that the recruitment industry contains powerful players. We tackle this topic in the ILO's white paper on recruitment between Asia and Arab states in 2016 by Dr. Ray Juradini. Of course, this is a topic that is very familiar to you, Neil, and the IHRB. The sort of challenges that that are faced, and what technology can do when properly designed and regulated is to improve the accessibility, efficiency, and transparency of specific business processes within that recruitment chain. But what it cannot do is to tackle corruption and malpractice if there is not the political will to actually stamp out these practices across the industry. So for example, under the EPS in Korea, bilateral MOUs that govern labor cooperation between the Korea and countries of origin stipulate, the need to ensure that workers are not charged excessive recruitment fees, and there is monitoring on both sides of the corridor. And so as a result, the EPS has reduced some of the power that was in the hands of private recruitment agencies to independently set their own fees, to be responsible for selecting workers. Now that sort of close bilateral state cooperation has helped to mitigate the market exploitation by limiting the power of the agencies. So it's not really the digital platform per se that was responsible for this, but really sort of the regulatory oversight. And even still, the process of eliminating recruitment fees, within Korea's system is still incomplete. So, it gives you an idea of how much political will and monitoring is required.
And how complex it can be.
And how complex it can be.
So let's consider end users now. We'll talk about migrant workers in a minute, but what about businesses? What do these platforms mean for businesses trying to recruit workers from abroad?
Well, for business, Neil, I think when a recruitment platform is well designed and implemented, the benefits are quite clear. A paper-based process of applying for international workers is really time-consuming. It requires obtaining, multiple approvals from multiple agencies, and sometimes in a sequential order. There's a risk of corruption if it's not clear what employers are required to pay and to whom. So, for example, even though Saudi Arabia's government doesn't set limits on what private recruitment agencies charge to households, even something so basic as mandating that each agency sets their prices upfront and it can be compared on one website has sort of encouraged competition to try to bring down the costs for employers. Where the system also matches prospective migrants and employers, this can be an asset to business. So, for example, in the case of the EPS and EURS in the EU, that way the job matching process can be designed based on skills and attributes rather than an exploitative model where recruitment agencies basically select workers based on their capacity to pay, and that results in recruitment debt and contract substitution. Again, technology can play a role in this. Blockchain, for example, can be used to prevent tampering of the contract, and try to sort of reduce the risk of contract substitution. Tackling these issues can really alleviate a major reputational risk to businesses. But it also means that the workers that they hire are more productive, they're more loyal to the company. I think this is something that has been demonstrated in numerous demonstration pilots by the ILO in terms of the benefits of fair recruitment and the employer pays principle.
No, absolutely. Better processes, better outcomes for workers and better outcomes for business as well. So let's talk about workers themselves now. How accessible are these platforms to potential migrant workers, do you think?
Yeah, this is a really major challenge in the operation of most recruitment systems. One issue is the limited languages in which the platforms are offered. The eMigrate system is only available in Hindi and English, although of course there's a range of other languages that migrant workers speak. Musanet is available in English and Arabic, although there are 10 countries of origin that send domestic workers to Saudi Arabia. But it's not just the language of the website. Workers will be more interested to use a responsive system that can deal with their individual grievances. And that requires authorities in countries of destination to also be able to communicate with the workers, outside of just having an interface, a website interface that's in the workers' language. That comes down to ensuring that there are interpreters or community liaison officers. And unfortunately, that remains rare in Arab countries of destination, but other countries as well. And then there's the issue of access to technology, because whether we're talking about domestic workers whose phones are confiscated by their employers, or construction workers in remote labor camps where data bundles are expensive, or fishers in remote waters where Wi-Fi is not even an option. The right to access technology is something that really needs to be better understood. And perhaps even enshrined in laws or MOUs, standard unified contracts. And I guess in the end, even the most accessible system needs the trust of migrant workers. So that means strict protection of data, efficient responsiveness, and user feedback with migrant workers to really sort of continue to improve the performance or the fit for purpose of the platform.
Yeah, a bit more work needed on that side of things then perhaps, but you can see where that might be heading as people become more familiar and have greater access to the technology. So where do you think that this is heading, Sophia? In our own programs, we make the point constantly that migrant workers are an asset to the countries where they seek work, adding great economic vitality to both countries of destination through their labour and also countries of origin through their remittances, and clean, clear, fair recruitment processes through platforms such as this seem to be good for workers and good for business, which means that they're good for the global economies. Where do you see, what's your ambition? Where do you see this going now?
Well, great question, Neil. I wish I had a crystal ball, but I think in the end, if I was going to give my sort of my 2 cents, I think we need to go back to the principle that technology is only as good as the political and financial investment in regulatory oversight. I think in the end, technology can streamline and facilitate business processes, but to really be transformative, to rise to the challenge of eliminating unfair recruitment, it needs to have measurable outcomes for governments, employers, and migrant workers. And for this, migrant workers have to be active users of the platforms, and the platforms need to be reformed with their needs in mind. So I think that's one direction. I think another direction is to also ensure that the technology that we're using is helping and not hurting, that there is strict data protection in place. Here, for example, the ILO's Code of Practice on Protection of Workers' Personal Data can be relevant, but also an emerging body of literature, including around possible discriminatory use of AI and other technological tools. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of potential, but still a lot of work to be done in order to ensure that technology really sort of meets its potential, and that fair and ethical recruitment can be better promoted.
Sophia, thank you for your time today and for explaining about the project. That's been fantastic. So thank you very much. The research project that we're talking about, promoting fair and ethical recruitment in a digital world, we'll put a link on the IHRB website so you can access it there, but you can also access it via the ILO's website as well. Thank you all very much for listening to this podcast from the IHRB. If you have enjoyed it, you may wish to subscribe to our feed and perhaps also sign up to our newsletter in order to receive all the latest news from the Institute and the world of business and human rights. Thank you very much.